should I do, buckaroos? How the heck are you? Let me adjust the camera slightly. Anyway, how the heck are you? I am Tom the Whiskey Whisperer, at least for the purpose of the video, but there may be some beer involved at some point. But I want to start with this. This is the Rival. I just opened this bottle, by the way. I just popped her. I bought this bottle back in August of last year when we were in Kansas City. No, that's not to say I haven't had other bottles of whiskey around, but it sat around for about a year. I left the dust on there. I don't know if you can see that. I didn't want to take all that off. Anyways, I've been dying to try it. Oh, well, I bought 2 bottles at the time because I really enjoyed this whiskey. And the first one went down. It lasted about 2 months. That first bottle did, but this one I just didn't want to open. I opened everything else. This is the last unopened bottle, or it was the last unopened bottle in the house. Now everything is gone. As I want to make room for new product coming in. So anyway, Union Horse Distilling, American Single Malt Whiskey. This one's at 96 proof. It is absolutely gorgeous. Rivalist American Single Malt Whiskey is a small batch artisanal whiskey made from 100% malted barley. It is just gorgeous, man. This stuff is just amazing. So anyway, I'm going to pick it up. You know, American Single Malt is quite different from its single malt counterparts. Scotch, Irish, single malt Irish, Japanese whiskey. Japanese whiskey almost seems like a lighter version of Scotch for the most part, but anyway. And then, you know, Irish whiskey, sometimes described as the smooth, sweeter one without that peat note. It's just easy to drink. But American single malt is a whole different category. And here's the big distinction is the barrel. Especially for this one, but and not necessarily in all American single malts, but most Scotch, Irish, Japanese whiskey are using used barrels, or spent bourbon barrels. Whereas this category, as you can see, the color of this whiskey uses new charred oak. So it's going to be a little bigger. It's going to be a little bolder. And a lot of folks think single malt, out of their minds automatically run to Scotch for thinking specific notes. Well, there's no peat involved here. Again, this is an American single malt whiskey, but where you don't have that peat smoke, you really enjoy that barrel char, right? You get those smoky notes. So it comes at you in a little bit different way. So not quite as smoky as, say, a Scotch, not near as sweet as, say, an Irish, and certainly a lot bolder than any Japanese single malt I've ever had. And maybe that's why I enjoy the category. I've talked to other folks, some local bourbon guys that aren't a fan of the category, but when I asked specifics of why they didn't like it, they really didn't have an answer other than they haven't found one they like. But when I mentioned specifics, well, did you try this one? Did you try this one? Did you try this one? No, no, no. Well, then I don't know how you're qualified to make that blanket statement. I don't like them. You can say, I don't like the ones I've had. At some point, a lot of bourbon drinkers tend to be a lot like snobs. They've latched onto certain brands, and whereas craft beer drinkers like myself, we like to buy small. Those that profess to be bourbon geeks really don't like to buy small. They will just about bash any small distillery they can because it's not doing the same things their big ones are doing, and that just doesn't make sense to me. Gosh, this whiskey's nice. So I wanted to have some on the rocks. I'm going to have some neat here next, but I want to drink this on the rocks first because I wanted to see how those notes reacted cold. I was personally getting a lot of toffee, a lot of vanilla, but I was also getting this fudge-like note near the end there too as well. But I know you're going to get more flavors and aromas neat. That's for sure. But I want to try it cold just to see how she reacted. Uh, I've noticed us older folks, and I've been asked about it more than once. Why do you apply a gender to certain things? And I think it's a lot of it is upbringing. Cars were always she's. So again, for me, it's something you enjoy was usually a she. She goes. Anyway, but I get, but it may not be appropriate these days. But then I say, well, it tastes good. Uh, Seems like I'm not being quite as. Anyways, I digress. Just trying to add a little humor. Anyway, so let me finish this up. I'm going to try some meat with you. Damn, damn, that is good. So let me give myself a nice pour here, neat. It's an ounce and a quarter glass. I'll just give myself an ounce and a quarter here. Another Kansas City area distillery I really like in shot glass is Russell Spirits. These guys are fucking awesome. They're amazing, man. They're really good. Anyway, I digress. I left a little bit of this Next Evolution barley wine. I want to finish that up along with this because I'm not concerned about this getting warm. You see. Anyways, it's making me a little giddy if you can tell. Wow, that's good. Yeah, so full strength without any ice impeding the aromatics. Let's see what they say. Copper pot still, aged to perfection in new oak barrels, beautifully complex, elegantly simple. Combines tender notes of caramel, orange peel, and baking spice. Yeah, they're pretty. I'm going to put a finer point on all of those. But caramel, yeah, certainly. You're going to find a lot of vanilla in there. Yeah, I didn't notice the orange peel right away. I'll be honest with you, but you do kind of feel it, especially on the nose. Baking spice. The baking spice you're going to get near the finish, and what spice you pull out really is between you and your palate. In all honesty, you're not going to taste things you don't know. For me, I use a lot of spices, so I tend to pull out a lot of spice notes that some might. However, I don't eat a lot of dark fruits. A lot of products will give you certain fruits. I don't eat a lot of those, so I'm only going to taste what I eat. So I want you all to understand that nobody is ever wrong. What you get is what you get. I hate when stops that. Well, you're wrong. You should get this. Well, if you don't know what that is, you're not going to get that. So if you're a Scotch drinker or an Irish drinker or a Japanese whiskey drinker, you'll notice right away that this isn't as sweet as any of those three. And they mentioned caramel, but I'm going to go a little bit farther because I feel like you get some brown sugar notes. You get just a light, let's say light brown sugar notes, because you get just a hint of molasses in there. You got a lot of vanilla running all the way through it. The baking spice. Well, I mean, again, that's really up to you. But I'm going to say you're going to find some allspice, some cinnamon. You might pick up some nutmeg, clove, even. It all depends on how how in tune you are to spice notes. Really, again, there is no right or wrong. It's however you feel is how you feel it. I pick out allspice a lot, whereas some would just see it as cinnamon. There's nothing wrong with that if you're not having allspice or in conjunction with or I have to use a lot of allspice. So there's a difference between allspice and then what we typically perceive as cinnamon here. I mentioned clove and nutmeg, but I think it's not going to be unusual if you find some ginger in here as well. So I get just a little bit of ginger in the finish. Just a little bit of ginger, baby. Anyways, I digress. Now I'm going to do something different. I'm going to take a drink of this barley wine and let's see how it plays off of that. So I mentioned earlier that the barley wine is sweeter. The barley wine is rather sweet, rather, and then you got those oak notes that clean it up. But a lot of folks approach beer whiskey pairings differently. How I do is I'm not necessarily looking for like flavors, but I'm looking for complementary flavors, flavors that work well together. I mean, I don't have these two flavors, but for instance, peanut butter and chocolate. They're separate, but you have them together. All that stuff. And that's kind of what I'm looking for when I pair beer and whiskey, is I want flavors that work well together, that aren't necessarily all the same. For instance, a maple whiskey, for instance, may not pair the best with a maple beer because you've got that same thing. Just you're not getting anything extra. I'm gonna have to take another drink there because I have an idea here. Man, that beer is delicious. So I mentioned earlier, and here's why I had to do that twice, because I wanted to see if I got the same result. So I mentioned earlier that I didn't feel this whiskey was as sweet as others, but there is a certain amount of sweetness going on. So what surprised me here is that I expected to have the sweet barley wine, the sugars from the barley wine would make the whiskey feel a little drier, not as sweet. But I kind of got the opposite of that. Whereas I had the sugars from here and it brought out more of the sugars from here, made it feel a little more sweet. That's interesting. Anyways, I digress. I am Tom the Whiskey Whisperer, whiskey evangelist, prolific whiskey drinker, purveyor of wisdom, and well, I happen to be having a beer, so I guess I had to go into the other spiel. Beer whisper, blah blah blah. All around, good guys, launch you.